So we have Shakespeare in a bunch of different texts from the period. We have quartos that were published while Shakespeare was alive, and then we have the folios that were published after Shakespeare died from the notes that were in the theater.
So some of the plays, the first folio is the earliest version of the play. However, there are other plays, Romeo and Juliet, for example, that had published quartos, which means a single copy of the play had been printed by a publisher earlier. In fact, in Romeo and Juliet, there are two extant quartos, the first quarto, the second quarto, and actually I think there are quarto 3 and quarto 4 that are extant as well, but I'm not sure whether they came before the folio or after.
We are using the second quarto for Romeo and Juliet, and the second quarto is partly because I think that represents one moment in the history of the theater company. It's fairly early on in the history of Romeo and Juliet, so we know we're fairly close to what Shakespeare actually wrote, but there are a few changes and there are a few things that are different. For instance, the character of Peter in the play. Instead of saying enter Peter in the stage directions, it says enter Will Kemp. And Will Kemp was one of the leading clowns of the day, so he's one of the funniest actors alive in London, and was playing this, what is actually a very small part of Peter. But you say if you've got one of the most important actors in your company playing this small part, well, there must be something to that part. There's also an example at the end of the balcony scene. Romeo has a line about the sun rising, the grey-eyed morn smiles on the frowning night. The friar is also given that exact same line at the beginning of his scene. So the question is, why is that? Why would two actors repeat exactly the same line? Well, in our version, we're doing it so that they both speak the line. And what you realize as soon as you do that is the sun is rising on both of them at the same time. So as the sun is coming up on Romeo, it's also coming up on the friar, and it makes you realize how fast this play moves. Now, I have no idea whether that's what Shakespeare intended in the play, but for some reason, both of those characters have that line. And actually, that continues through into later editions of the play, that both of those characters have the line. There are discoveries that we have that modern scholars would have said, well, that just must be a mistake, and they sort of throw it out, and if we don't use something like the quarto, we deprive ourselves of making those discoveries.